What's going on, guys? Bingo here. I'm with the Duel Factory for the 19th installment of X-2 Drop, a weekly Yu-Gi-Oh podcast we do talking about anything relevant in the community. This week's topic is, does Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge have impact on the metagame? And this is pre-ban list. The current date is July 14th, so it's probably going to change some things we talk about, but for the most part, the things we're going to be talking about are in the next couple of months, in expecting a shift in the current format. So we're going to go through the set list, talk about cards that we want to bring up. We feel like they warrant some discussion because there's a lot of irrelevant stuff in this set, but there are some gems without counting the reprints because Secret Rare Pankratops looks pretty sweet. All right. So, Joe, before we talk about cards in the set specifically, how do you feel this set was structured? Like, do you feel like it was well made? Because I think the first Battle of Legends set is probably still the best looking at time of release. It hasn't aged that well because of the way ban lists and metagames changed, but at the time it was amazing. This one, I don't think it did as well as the first one, but I definitely think it did better than the second one.
It just depends on what standpoint you look at it, honestly. Like, to me, nothing's going to compare to the first set release of the very first one, because like you said, at the time, what we got was amazing. Especially with, like, Minerva finally getting the reprint and making it affordable to everyone, so you can see a lot of 60-card decks, especially when Grass was still legal. That was really big.
Yeah, we had a Crystal Wing reprint, Omega reprint, both extremely expensive cards at the time.
Yeah, they were popular level 8 synchros to play and stuff like that. Like, those were, like, really, really powerful cards. And, it curved what it took to actually play them because they didn't cost as much money. So then you fast forward a year and you look at the second one, which was not Light's Revenge, but what was it? It was something.
Yeah, I don't even know.
But, like, the only, like, really impactful cards you saw at the time were, like, maybe Golden Castle and some other stuff. Like, you got Gumblar out of it, but it still took, like, a month or two for Gumblar to really, like, catch on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there just wasn't, like, anything in that set. It didn't age well. Like, it was neat when it was released, but that was about it.
Yeah, now you fast forward to now what we have, which is Heroes Revenge, and two, like, really interesting cards, Lambda and Almirage. We don't know how they're gonna impact our meta currently, because, like I said, it's an off season. But I have a feeling going towards a new season, those cards will have a lot of high impact on the actual game, and you just don't know. Like, the way the sets might play out, it could be just as good as the first one was. It could be as bad as the second one. You never know. But I think it's shaping up to look really good from my standpoint.
I would agree. The things I want to talk about before we get into the individual cards are the archetypes. So it's a little interesting that we got full-fledged archetypes in this set, which has historically been a reprint set. Or that's the drive to it. But we got Battle Wasps and New Vision Hero support. And
you also got those Fortune Fairy cards.
Oh yeah, a complete pack filler. Like that. Let's talk about the Fortune Fairies first, because they have absolutely no win condition. They barely have any semblance of a strategy. Like, I don't really know how they're supposed to win. Like, they could be an engine, right? They're all different attributes. They're all spellcasters. They all do stuff, but...
Yep, I know they have some sort of spell that gives them all attack points and stuff like that, but they're all just a bunch of 0/0 monsters. They might be good for linking, but like I said, I don't know what they do. That's the problem.
Yeah, one of them, when it's... They all special themselves when they're drawn, which does not count the opening 5 cards, by the way. But when they're drawn, they special. When they're special, they do something. One foolishes one from deck. You can I think you can target a spellcaster in your field and special a spellcaster with 1 level lower from your deck. That's probably the best one. I think that's the level 3 one banishes a spellcaster from your deck. So like there's this small like idea that ties them all together, but if anything, it's an engine, and the only deck that I could think of playing it in is Invoked, because there's like a small bit of overlap, but because they're all different attributes and they all like are inherent summons when they work, but in hand they're just dead.
Wonderful.
So
but, I mean, like it's like I said, that's more of a pack filler, and that's more, to me, that Fortune Fairy deck is more fan service than anything, because I've heard some people complain about it over the years, because it was a 5Ds deck originally. It was played by one of the characters that ended up being one of the Dark Signers, or some bullshit like that. You know what I mean?
And they're cool. Like, hopefully somehow they become playable. But I think it's just going to be another Witchcrafter, like where the deck is like just a horrible card economy. Like doesn't really do anything. But we'll see. And then you got the Vision Hero support, and I'll let you talk about that because I don't play heroes. I honestly couldn't tell you what they do.
To me, the Vision Hero support, the support itself is really good. The only cards you need to worry about are Ferris and Increase. The other ones are just kind of like back filler. But I mean, like they give the whole deck a new dynamic. Like Ferris to me is the most high impact one. Being able to basically its effects, you discard a hero to special summon it, and then you can place Vision Hero from your deck in the spell and trap card as a continuous trap card, and then the other one summons when it goes to the graveyard, it summons a Vision Hero, and like that's a super impactful effect because that's just another way to get to Vision Hero Vion, which is arguably the best hero that we have access to right now.
The best Vision Hero or the best hero?
Probably just the best generic hero, because like Vision Hero, it's such a high impact card, and it, like having access to go and just get it, and it also makes his normal summoning Stratos like one of the best plays in your deck now. Because like before, like no, it was just like normal summon Stratos, and if you didn't have a way to follow up, well, then the turn was just over. But now it's just like you open Stratos and you open the Ferris play, and you're ending on like Extra Hero Cross Crusader. I've seen some of them, they end on Dystopia, Cross Crusader, and you can now actually play cards like Destiny Hero Plasma, which is more or less skill drain. And like that's insane.
Yeah.
No, it does have the classic like hero flaw that they always do something to it to make it to make it not like broken, but more or less you're locking heroes to the rest of the turn, and that's actually it's like I get it, but like it would have been like super high impactful in the meta if it didn't just lock you into heroes, because you do a lot more stuff. But I mean, just those cards at all, and also being searchable, like I said, just being searched by Stratos is the biggest thing. So
okay, so do you expect to see like obviously heroes have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fan base in the game, just generically, right? Do you feel like this is actually going to make an impact on a regional level, or do you think it's just going to be people want it to work and a guy here or there will top a regional with them, or do you think they'll just not do anything?
I think it's enough to put them in a rogue condition for like regional events and stuff like that. And you also have to remember that they're still getting more support in the evil hero support that we saw with the new fusion monster, and the new fusion monster, Audacious Gold or whatever his name is. But you still have those cards coming, and then that's the biggest thing with the Vision Hero stuff is the Ferris. That's the good one, the one you special summon from hand. He's level 5. And he fulfills the requirement of the new Evil Hero Fusion, Malicious Bane, or whatever. I think it's Malicious Bane, which requires an Evil Hero and a level 5 or higher monster. So you're just basically getting that for free. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. With that new Evil Hero, since you can now tutor Vision Hero Vion out of the deck, it sends that gold to the graveyard, which sets you up to get the Dark Calling to set up that card. So, I mean, like, it's going to get better over time. Oh, I just don't know when we get that new Evil Hero stuff to go with it. But for now, I think you'll probably see it here or there at a couple events.
Okay. And that's it for the archetypes, I believe. Like, I mean, we have, like, the high-speed roid, synchro. We got miscellaneous stuff here, but that's all the new, like, bulk. And then the Battle Wasps. I have no idea how those play. They look neat. They look kind of synchro spammy.
It's
but
literally just black wings, copy and paste over to insects.
yeah, it's not going to do anything yet. Is it? So are they generic insect support, or are they locked into battle wasps?
No, I think some of them are generic insect support, but I don't think any of them are good enough to be played in specific decks. I think they're mostly archetype specific.
Yeah.
That's what I think off the top of my head.
All right, so that's it for the archetypes. I don't want to spend too much time on that because I don't think that's the point of this. The first impactful card is Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. This card's basically a staple in the OCG since it came out. It's just a game ender. It's a lot easier to make than Boral Sword for a lot of decks, and it basically does the same thing. Boral Sword and Avermax are like your finishers that just gain a bunch of attack and close out the match. But this is a generic Link 3. It does need 3 specific names, but it can clear 2 monsters, make a second attack for high impact damage, or just banish a problem card after it attacks. Like, it's just generically good.
To me, like, I was talking to Doug and I was talking to Aaron about this yesterday, but they were asking me if I thought the card was good. And the way to basically look at it is the reason, like, BLS was so good when it was at 1 for the longest time, and people are arguing about why it should be banned, is because when you drew it and summoned it, the game was over, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no coming back from a top deck BLS and just getting blown out. Now we have a makeable BLS. And that changes the whole dynamic of the card, because now you don't have to, if I draw this card, then I win it. I'm like, no, you can make it at any time. And like you were saying, it's just easier for a lot of decks, especially rogue decks, to make this card, because you don't have to go into a generic Link 2 that has to be an effect monster. Keep that in mind. So you can't make like Lanfernicus and then 2 other monsters make it. But it just requires any 3 monsters with different names, and that's pretty easy for a lot of decks, because a lot of decks you see now, and popular rogue strategies, they can put 3 monsters on the board, no problem. Like, for example, you're playing BA, that can put 3 monsters on the board, no problem. You just have to have 3 different BAs or whatever extender you're playing at the time. And then you can also play it in deck. I don't know if it'll be played, because I haven't tested it myself, but you can play it in decks like Thunder Dragon when you need a card to end the game. And it also gains its additional effect because you have level 7 or higher monsters to prevent it from being targeted or being destroyed by card effect. And that's pretty awesome for a card like that. So I think that card's going to be insane. I don't know if it'll be better than the other aforementioned cards, but I think if you can play it and you have the room in your edge deck, you should, for sure. Especially since it also has the same arrows as like a cards like Decode Talker and whatnot, so that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good card. The only downside it has versus, traditional BLS is you can't just summon it and banish a card. Like, you have to destroy a monster by battle to gain the additional effect, but it's whatever. If you needed to clear a card, you would have made Unicorn, right?
Yeah, typically when you're summoning that card, you're going for game. You're not worried about clearing something so you can start playing. You're literally trying to finish it.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really good. I mean, Boral Sword's still a hell of a fucking card, but honestly, I could see that card being banned eventually. It's just... All right, we'll move on. Trap Trick Sarah. I wanted to throw this in here because it is worth talking about, because it is an extremely good card in the very limited decks that can afford to play a Trap Trick engine. By itself, if you resolve it, it's a +2 to +3 depending on how the trades go. And for right now, I think it's just Paleo that are really messing with it.
I think that card, personally, I think it gives rogue decks a lot to look forward to also, especially older strategies. We were talking about this last night. Older strategies, back when Yu-Gi-Oh wasn't all combo based and everyone was just pulling up 6 negate boards. Decks like Volcanic, where they were one normal summon or a standalone normal summon. Any deck that had a standalone normal summon, I should really say, that had a powerful +1 effect and stuff like that. I think that card becomes really beneficial in those types of decks. And like you were saying, we've seen it, and we've seen a lot of people actually testing Trap Trick Paleo, like you were saying. Because the Sarah generates 2 traps, and then you can always back it with the frog and stuff like that, and that's insane. Other decks you can look towards, one I was thinking about is I think a Trap Trick Engine would be really good in like an Altergeist deck, because if you think about it, they don't really have like a solid turn 1 setup card other than, searching Multifaker, and we know that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Now, you can play, if you wanted to, you can play a Trap Trick Engine, would also get you a trap card to resolve your Multifakers. And you also have another way of spell and trap removal, because I believe doesn't it special summon a Trap Trick monster?
Yeah, so let me read the effect. This link summon card is unaffected by trap cards. It's once per turn. If a normal trap card is activated, you can special summon a Trap Trick monster from your deck with a different name than cards you control. If your other Trap Trick monster effect is activated, you can set a whole normal trap card from the deck. So standard play is you activate a trap, special Murmello, mandatory effect. Even if they don't control back row, it activates, and then you get the free. You pop a card or you don't, and then you get a free trap pull.
Exactly. Like it gives your deck another toolbox to play with, and that's why I think that's where that card is going to see real high impact. The problem is those decks that I'm talking about, they're not really high impact decks currently. And that's because they're overshined by a lot of things. Like, for example, the Altergeist deck is... At this point, we've completely, phased Altergeist out of the meta, because the Guru deck is just a better Altergeist deck, right? And You're not going to play a card like... You're not going to play Trap Trick Sarah in a Subterra deck.
No, you want to summon Guru every single turn.
Exactly. And none of the combo decks are going to play this, because there's no reason to play a Trap Tricks Engine in combo decks. So, the only deck that it would... The decks that you're going to see, they're all rogue level decks. So I think that's a card that's also going to take time for it to get, really good. But for now, it's a really good card. I would pick it up, especially if you like playing rogue or if you like playing stun strategies.
It's always going to be there, especially for... there's going to be another control deck that comes out. There's going to be another slower strategy, and it's always going to be an option like Hat was back in the day. A staple. It can come back, especially when a card generates so much advantage, just like this one. It's always got to be, in the back of your mind when you're deck building control decks.
Exactly.
All right. Another card that's kind of in the same boat is Cyframe Lord Lambda. So for anyone that doesn't know what this does, takes 2 monsters without counting tokens, and it says you can activate Cyframe gear monsters from the hand, even if you control monsters. If a face-up psychic monster you control is banished while you control this card, you can activate the effect during the end phase of this turn, add a Cyframe card from your deck to your hand, and they're both hard once per turns. So I think this card is, again, in the same boat, because there's not really a strategy that can abuse this. Mech Knight Invoke can play it, definitely, but there's no psychic archetype, there's no deck that can guarantee that you're going to get that surge as well as establish more board presence on top of that turn 1.
Okay. So with Cyframe, let me make sure I have it pulled up here before I go shooting off my mouth here. So Cyframe Lord Lambda, let's look at it. It's a link 2, it's generic. You can't make it with tokens. So that's an area that Beat Cop and Lambda, not Lambda, but Land for Linkus have it beat, right? Because they can just use any 2 tokens to make it. But he's light. He's a relatively big body for a Link 2 at 1700. He has the same 2 downward pointing arrows. And if he also has the added benefit of if you're already playing a hand trap like Cyframe Gear Gamma, it just makes it live without you having to have an empty field, right?
Yeah.
So that's just an added benefit of it just by simply playing that card in your deck.
It's like a generic Link 2 with extra, right? It's always better.
Exactly. So that's where I think this card's going to really shine. And I think, to me personally, decks that are playing, especially Guard Dragon combo decks, that need a generic Link 2 with downward pointing arrows like that to set up their Guard Dragon plays. Me personally, I think this one card replaces that completely. Another reason being is one of the downsides of playing Land for Linkus as your light Link 2 that people are playing is Land for Linkus is not an effect monster, so you can't use it to make cards like Borreload, Boral Sword. There was another really important one that I was thinking of, but I can't think of it. But it has the benefit of Land for Linkus cannot do that, but Lambda can. So I think this card is better suited for the meta than most of the set, a lot of the cards in this set.
Yeah.
But for it, it's a shame because there's not really an engine other than the Mech Knight engine that really takes advantage, like you were saying, of its other effects of being able to search. And that's where I think that this card kind of falls short on being like super meta impactful. But I mean, for decks that are already playing, like when playing cards like that, like it's a nice little buff that we received.
Yeah, what I think this card will do is let Gamma, maybe even like Delta, and the spell and trap negates see a lot more play in the side, because it lets you, go into your combo and still resolve Gamma. Like, you could just leave this on the field, and I'm sure you can structure your combo around to where that Gamma's live in your hand. So it's just really nice to see that it's going to let that card, which is extremely powerful, negate and destroy as a hand trap, see meta play again, because Gamma comes in and out of formats almost as much as Droll, but right now it's just not in a position because there's a lot of chain blocking and all this other stuff. But we've spent a lot of time on this card.
It's an extra edge, man.
This is one that it seems so harmless. Salamangreat Almirage is a generic, or it's a Link 1. It requires one normal summoned monster with 1,000 attack or less. Quick effect. The effect's not really that relevant. The generic Link 1 is what makes this card so good. Because I was just going to say, it facilitates so many plays. I'm a Mech Knight Invoke player. I really enjoy that deck, and this just does so much for that strategy. I don't want to talk about a rogue deck and but I know this helps Orcust, turns a lot of things into one card combos and stuff like that. But
this Almirage is like, for a monster that doesn't really have an effect, I think it's probably going to be the most high impactful card out of the set, just because of what it facilitates. Yeah. So
this is like us getting Underclock Taker back when there was no good Link 2s, right?
Exactly.
It's like the same thing, but go on.
But okay, so like cards like Almirage, like you're saying, like it's a huge buff for decks like Mech Knight Invoked, because if you think about it, Alistair now becomes a 1-card column to activate end of your Mech Knight's turn 1. That's huge, right? But now we expand our vision of what engines you can play with it. And now Songen is a 1-card Orcust combo now. Simply because you can summon a Songen, and then you just make Almirage, because Almirage is generic. The Songen activates the effect. You can add any of the Crusadia cards that are under 1,000. I'm just using examples.
Something that can summon itself without activating.
That's an inherent. That's the only issue, though. It has to be an inherent summon, but it like I said, it's facilitated by that specific engine, and then you just get a combo off for free. That's insane. Another way to look at it is another engine you can put that card into is, now you're looking at the Altergeist deck, where now you can summon a Songen to make Almirage, almost like you would summon Milliseek to make Link Karibo to add Multifaker to your hand. So now if you think of it that way, you have 6 normal summonable monsters that you can link off to make yourself have a Multifaker that's live for the following turn.
Yeah, because one of Altergeist's biggest problems is not opening a monster that's not named Konkiri, right? Like, you need to see one of your 9, and sometimes you just don't. So having that, basically those 12 monsters instead of those 9 is going to make a big difference for that deck.
Exactly. But see, in terms of what it actually does, is the only deck that we mentioned that is a high impact, and it's a tier 1 deck right now, is Orcust. And that's probably it only has a home in that one deck for tier 1 to me personally. But
now we have a generic Link 1 like Clara and Rushka, but it's not restricted to main phase 2, which was the biggest downside to that card. So we'll see where that goes.
Exactly.
All right, and our Mystic Mind support, Dark Sacrifice.
That card's actually low-key pretty good.
This card, yeah, it's a pain in the ass that it fits in that deck so well, but it's a normal trap card. When your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy a card or cards on the field, negate the effect, and send 1 level 3 or lower dark monster from your deck to your graveyard.
So I got smacked with this yesterday because we were playing at locals, and the set was I got smacked with it. Completely stopped my play. Because, like, Dragonic Diagram reads I can pop a card on the field, so the Dark Sacrifice immediately stopped that, and then Doug activates next to mine, and I don't get to play.
Yep.
I didn't know that it sent a level 3 Dark Monster, so that's kind of cool, because it reminds me of back in 2015 when BA decks were playing Fiend Griefing, and it did something similar where it send a Fiend monster from the deck to the graveyard to send a monster from your opponent's graveyard back to the deck. So now you could play a card like that and protect your cards and then just send a free BA to the graveyard. That being said, the cards that you would send off Fiend Griefing would most likely be Graph and Seer, which are 1-ofs. And unfortunately, since they're at 1 and they usually go through them with your turn 1 combo with Cherubini, I don't think that card's that high impactful in a deck like that. But you have the option to play it, and that's something.
Yeah, and you never know when one of those is going to get peeled off to 2. At the very least, it's protection. You can send Farfa. You can send, you can send something. Again, I don't think it's too relevant for Burning Abyss. It's really too slow. That deck's not really trying to do it, but it's another card in the card pool. I bring it up because if Mystic Mind doesn't get hit, there's genuinely another copy of fucking Dark Bribe, if you look at it that way, because unless they're playing Cosmic, it just stops their outs to your fucking Floodgate.
Exactly. It's just... It also has the fatal flaw of Yu-Gi-Oh! Of it being purple and not green.
Yeah, not green with a lightning bolt.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's try to speed through these next couple. The new rank 4 was number 60. This card is super interesting. 2 level 4 monsters. You can detach 2 materials, activate 1 of the effects. Skip your next draw phase, draw 2 cards, then discard 1. Skip your next main phase 1, special summon a monster from the graveyard and defense. Skip the battle phase of your next turn, double the attack of 1 monster you control till the end of this turn. So, idea of the card is you're advancing your turn by 1 to lose that part of your turn next turn. I think the draw could be super good because you're not negging, especially if you're playing dangers. I don't know. It seems like it has potential.
So that card would have been better before Master Rule 4.
Yeah, like a year ago.
But, I mean, it gives you a chance to get lucky. And
it's like Buffalo versus Debug, right?
Exactly.
You can draw anything. But it's just a generic rank 4 that we now have in the pool is draw. And also facilitates discards if your deck's trying to do that.
It's like a makeable Reckless Greed, and that seems like that seems pretty good. So
yep. And just being able to discard a danger for free is pretty good.
Easy.
All right, one of the cards I was looking forward to most in the set, Magical Musketeer Max. It completely changes that deck and how it plays. So this card's broken in a bad archetype. So it takes 1 Magical Musketeer that's level 8 or lower, so you can't use itself. If this card is link summon, activate 1 effect. Add Magical Musket, spell, or traps from your deck to your hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls, or special summon Magical Muskets from your deck with different names up to the number of spell or trap cards your opponent controls. So this card can genuinely be, like, in a game state that's never going to happen, it can be a +5. Like, it's unheard of.
This is one of those cards, man. Like, it just makes that deck insane, because, like, now you go from almost like, if they stop my 1 monster, I can't do anything. It's just like, you just flood the field, and now your opponent just can't play.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing against a back row deck, you just get 3 monsters on the field. If you're playing the trap, let's say that lets you link summon on your opponent's turn, you can search 3 fucking interrupts on their turn. Like, I don't know. It's just something that will take the deck. It's still going to be a rogue deck. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be busted, but it's going to be a lot more playable than it is now.
Yeah, it makes a genuinely bad deck with a really cool, like, game mechanic to a somewhat rogue strategy that can actually do something. And that's pretty impactful for 1 card.
Yeah. All right, the next card is Eperia. It's just a level 2 reptile that says, if this card is summoned, draw 1 card. You can use that effect once per turn. Maybe one day there's a way to loop it. It's just a generic draw. I wanted to throw it in here because it always, anytime a card that says draw, and it's loopable over the course of the duel. Maybe it'll see play.
So, for those of you who didn't watch the anime or anything like that, Hyperia actually comes from one of the deck masters. I think his name. But he used Deep Sea Warrior, and Hyperia was part of the strategies where you draw a card, then he had a floater monster, yada yada. And the point was he always had 2 monsters to tribute for his deck master effect, and he was always generating a +1 every time he played one of his monsters, and that's where Hyperia fits in that role. So, like you're saying, it's one of those cards that's going to take time for it to actually like phase itself in, but it might like actually be like one of those cards one of those days. Yeah. Plus, I genuinely like the card. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's good design. Thank God it has that hard once per turn effect on it.
Exactly.
And we haven't really had a meta relevant reptile strategy, so maybe one day. All right, and the last card that I've peeked out since we're running out of time is number 97, Dragulo Beyond. I don't know how to say it. Number 97.
Leon or something, whatever it's called.
Yeah, so 2 level 8s. Generic. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Detach 1 material from this card. Take 2 dragon number monsters with different names from your extra deck and or graveyard, except itself. Special summon 1 of them and attach the other to it as material. For the rest of the turn, you can't special summon monsters or declare an attack except with that monster. So, if you're turn 1 comboing, this is how you end it. I will note that a couple of the targets you can summon off this thing are pretty good, but we were talking about earlier, you said 38, and what did I say? It was like Earth Dragon or something. I'm getting
Chaos Hard Earth Dragon, I think it was the one that was the blanket effect.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just one of those cards, like, it's good, but in the decks it's good in, or like, they're generally bad. The only deck I've seen playing this deck card was Blue Eyes, and that's just rank 8 toolbox. But I mean, when it hits the field, it's like it's a high impact card, and it's another 3,000 body that cannot be targeted. And like 3,000 is a really big number in Yu-Gi-Oh! Not being able to target it just makes it that much worse. But you made the biggest point earlier when we were talking about it. It just requires so much extra deck space because it.
Yeah, it requires 3. It requires 3 extra deck spots. 1 for itself, 2 for the targets.
Exactly. So it's just like, this card's cool. I think it gives like rogue decks that can play rank 8s a cool new card to work with. But you're dedicating 3 at the minimum. You're dedicating 3 slots. So I mean, you kind of have to pick and choose what you're gonna do. But I mean, it's a super impactful card when you summon it. So
So in my opinion, the best thing to bring out off this thing is number C92, Heart Earth Chaos Dragon. It says, cannot be destroyed by battle. When opponent's monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you gain life equal to that. That's not important. But if it has number 92, Heart Earth Dragon as material, it gains once per turn. You can detach 1 Xyz material from this card and negate all. Oh, it's not a quick effect. Never mind. That's what you get for reading cards too fast. It's still a good card, but if it's not a quick effect, honestly, there's no good interruptions you can bring up off this card. And if you're ending your combo to use this effect, you better have something that's worthwhile bringing out.
If it wasn't restricted to dragons, it'd be like...
Oh, yeah, there'd be some crazy... But it is, and if you're going to use this thing to bring out 38 for the negation, why not just bring out 38 without wasting 3 slots?
Yeah, I don't know. Being non-targeting is pretty good, so that's good.
All right, so that is... Joe, do you have any cards you want to talk about that I didn't bring up?
No, I think we covered all the general new cards. Like I said, you have the Battle Wasp, which is basically black wings for insects. I mean, there's that.
Yeah, and there are quite a few more cards in the set, but those are the ones that I pulled out. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about reprints because there's no point.
Yeah, we already know what those do, but I mean, like, can we talk about how gorgeous Pancratops and Lancia look? Woo!
I'd like to talk about Necros Cycle.
That looked really good, too. I was actually really happy with how that one came out.
All right, so we're at time. We're a little bit over. So, Joe, you got any closing comments?
Devin Gentry is free.
And
Douglas French has no sauce, aka also known as sauceless French.
all right, guys. So if you have enjoyed episode 19 of X2 Drop, please remember to stop by next week at the same time, same place. It goes up on iTunes, Google Play at 8 a.m. on Monday mornings, and it goes up on YouTube at 10 a.m. on youtube.com/The Duel Factory and Bingo HD. So with that being said, Douglas French has no sauce as always, and I will see you guys next week.
Okay, bye!